Recording in progress.
All right, there we go. Feeling the beats. J.I. Stars in the house. Joe Arizari up there in New Jersey, the New York City, New Jersey metro market. Lucky to have met this gentleman, 7 years ago plus now. So what's up, man?
Doing good, man. Looking forward to this specific Friday
Yeah.
Live.
I know, man. I was writing down some notes today.
Yeah.
And getting ready for, and maybe turn out, get the music's all good. So we just want to make sure we're broadcasting live in the Facebook group. I didn't check yet, but we are.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of do like the monitoring, like we kind of did the other meeting we had recently, where you monitor the comments, see if there's any questions. If there's anybody else that you think we should shout out on the Facebook Live that's saying something or asking something, let's do that. But hey, so yeah, I was outlining some notes for today, and I realized that this deal that I'm going to talk about today, the example and just the BRRRR process and whatnot, it's just kind of like almost too challenging for me to write down. It's going to tell the story, I think. So I'm just going to tell a story, share the nuggets that I learned in the process of buying the property that we're talking about, which if you guys are just kind of catching us live inside the Facebook group, first off, shout out to Wendy for being on Zoom, and our private coaching clients can also join via Zoom. You guys should have a link. It's probably inside the Facebook group. So check that out. If you're hearing this inside of the real estate investing mastermind group, you can hop over to our private coaching group and actually go ahead and grab that link to join live on Zoom. But nonetheless, if we haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, Douglas J. Beck here. And I'm originally from New Jersey, as many of you might know, if we've connected from a New Jersey real estate event or an expo or something like that. I'm sitting right now in Sarasota, Florida. I've been down here for about 3 years. And ultimately here today to talk with you about one of the deals and also the processes in general, the BRRRR process, what it takes to buy, renovate, rent, and then refinance a property using little to none of your own money. In my case, the one that we did that we're going to talk about today was using none of my own money. And I still made some mistakes. Like, every deal, you have different things you learn. And this one was not much different in the sense that I could have done some things, which I'll talk about in the storytelling here about what the deal was. But let me just first kind of say thank you for being here with us. Thank you for joining in live. Thank you for checking the replay. Joe, I think it's all good, but I don't see myself on Spotlight only because I want to make sure that I look the way that I think it should look and everything's working properly. If you could just do that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, you absolutely are. It looks a little different on Facebook than it does on Zoom, by the way.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, because I'm not really focusing on Facebook, so I just want to make sure you got that everything's looking good. Technically speaking, it's all looking good, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. So listen, everybody. So let's just kind of set some expectations, right? So if you're catching us for the first time inside the real estate investing mastermind group, you might not know that, we've had a number of these conversations over the past many weeks, and we've gotten pretty consistent with our Friday at 1 p.m. Conversation together, and either it's sharing information or sharing stories or doing a little bit of both, networking, asking questions. We're here for you, each week, and we're here to just connect and hopefully for you guys to learn something and apply these things in principle and take action. We do have, other communities that are for our clients. And so we do have some of our clients inside of Zoom, like I said, joining us live for these meetings each week. And so last week, if you missed last week, so I want to just mention that one because there's some time sensitive things related to last week. So last week we talked with Lewis, my friend Lewis, who's also from originally New Jersey, but now lives in Naples, Florida, and does business all across the country in different ways. Lewis has been a real estate investor for over 20 years, and you can check the replay of that in the Facebook group. You can see kind of the whole story about his background and kind of how he got started and some of the things that he's done since then. But specifically, Lewis is an auction and foreclosure sheriff sale type investor and expert in that space. And he actually has training and coaching that he does with that. So we made a special offer last week. So if you missed that, just throw me a DM and just mention the word auction, just the keyword auction, and we'll make sure we get you the information about what that's all about with Lewis. There might even be a replay inside the group that you could find with a link to go ahead and see more about his information, how his programs work and what it's all about. So that's that. If you don't know by now, it's pretty much becoming more aware as far as the real estate investor community is acknowledging the fact that there's going to be more foreclosures, more auction properties, more sheriffs. There already are. But the average investor is going to start hearing more and more of that. You're going to start seeing more inventory. So that's a good sign if you're looking for supply of real estate to buy. It's not the best thing for certain markets that are maybe highly densely populated where you have properties going into foreclosure. And now the owners of properties that are not selling are going to have potential implications to their home values or the property values. So That's not a universal comment, but just know that there's some different pieces of the puzzle there. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about and you're curious, again, hit me up with the message auction. We could talk about it as well, as far as how that looks and what that means in terms of real life, how it might impact your local market, in my opinion, or my team's opinion, or Lewis's opinion. Now, today's conversation actually is sort of related to auctions, because the property and the deal we're talking about that we purchased a few years back, probably about 5 years ago, was from a relationship, but it was also from the one platform called Hubzu. So Hubzu, Hubzu. Don't quote me on this, but I believe Hubzu deals with, at least in the beginning, dealt with mostly properties that were owned and being auctioned by a particular loan servicer called Aquin. Aquin, I don't know if they still, I should know if they're still around, but I don't know if they are. Aquin was dealing with certain kinds of mortgages again, and Hubzu was the platform that was established at that time to allow Aquin to sell off their assets and auction them off, essentially. And so folks that were real estate investors like myself and like Lewis, took a keen eye on that and went out there and started finding deals and looking for stuff and making offers and going through the bidding process online. Again, auction properties, you can check auction.com. There's also a thing called Xome, XOME.com. There's also HUD Home Store, which is really the FHA foreclosure, platform there. And then obviously you have in-person sheriff sale auctions. So again, that was kind of like last week. You can go back and check that. But to kind of paint the picture, imagine, we're in our office at this time. It was probably, I think it was early 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And we had done probably well over 100 wholesale transactions to date at that point. And I'd been doing some fixing and flipping as well. Hadn't got into like the really heavy fix and flip business just yet, because I was just kind of ramping up. But ultimately, somebody had presented me a deal, a relationship, a gentleman named Corey. I'm not sure if Corey will hear this, but hopefully one day he could listen to it. Corey's an awesome guy up there in central New Jersey, somebody I connected with a number of years ago and has done a lot of business as well. I'd love to actually have him in for an interview sometime to talk through some of his business models and things he's been able to accomplish. But nonetheless, Corey sent me a text message, I think, and he said, "Hey, Doug, I got a 2-family over there in Bound Brook, and I'm looking for an investor. If you know anybody." I said, "Wait a second." At the time, I'm living in Somerset County, and Bound Brook was like three towns over. And I'm like, well, maybe I could buy this, right? Because now I'm starting to get ramped up on the fix and flip side, and I'm thinking about maybe buying some rentals. And this would have been and was actually my first rental property purchase that I was on by myself. I'd done some other deals with people like a joint venture and stuff like that, but this was the first one that I would own by myself. At that time, I was focusing mainly to that point on just wholesale and fix and flip and growing our title insurance company and things like that. So at this point, I'm saying, let me take a look at this. So we end up going to the property. We had talked a little bit. I got some information, all the normal stuff that you do when you're evaluating a property. We're not going to rehash all that because I want to focus on the buy, renovate, rent, refi, right? The buy, renovate, rent, refi is the BRRR, BRRR process. And so, this wasn't apparent to me that this was what it was going to be as far as a BRRR. I didn't know if it was going to be a flip yet. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew it was right down the road. Our office was in central New Jersey, in Hillsborough, New Jersey. Some of you may have been there before if you've been in the New Jersey market for a period of time or have come to some of our in-person events that we've done up there or whichever. So literally was probably about 10 minutes away from Hillsborough. And so went to go take a look at it. I brought somebody who I trusted to evaluate the renovation, and I pretty much knew that this was going to be a property that we were going to buy because it just like really got me excited when I saw the fact that the size of this thing, it was like almost 3,000 square feet. Side by side duplex, pretty massive because it's actually kind of like it had a porch that you had to walk up a couple steps to get into the actual front door. And just the way it was laid out just made me feel like this is something I feel like I actually am going to own something here that's really exciting. And so it was a pivot point for me. And coincidentally, it was either towards the end of 17 or 18. I think it was 2017. And in the beginning, like January, because I know the date we closed, and the date we closed is also very important. I'll tell you about that in a second. But the fact is that this particular property wasn't in horrible condition. It was actually in pretty good condition. It just needed some updating, the typical stuff. You hear people talk about cosmetics and kind of laugh about that. But in fact, it really just was cosmetically updating it and then replacing some stuff that, need to be replaced as far as the systems and things like that. Nothing too crazy. We did end up doing the roof on it. We did end up doing some other things, which again, I'll get to. But for the time being, let's focus on Corey brought this deal. I pretty much immediately went out to go look at the property with a person I trusted to evaluate the construction. It came from Hubzu, right? So he was going to close on the property and then eventually sell it to me. Essentially, that's what he did. He ended up taking title and then selling it. And so, again, we'll get to some of that in a little bit here. But my company took title, and then essentially from there, we decided to do the renovation. And I'll tell you how we got there again. But I'm just telling you kind of the end, so you get an idea of like where we're going here. We took title, we renovated it, and we ended up refinancing. We did the BRRR process. So that's what we're going to talk about. So got the property under contract because I realized at the property, I'm going to look at the place and I'm seeing the condition. I'm looking at the price. I'm thinking about the numbers. And I'm saying this thing could be worth like over $300,000 and I'm getting it for 175. Like that was basically what it was, right? So it was like, I'm able to buy this for 175. I think Corey had it for like 160 or something like that. And essentially I knew that this thing was be worth more than 300,000 probably one day, if not right away, once it's done being renovated. I mean, this is a no brainer. I got to jump on this. I'm like, send me the contract, right? Send me the contract. Now, mind you, I knew that I had a lender to do this deal that actually could move very fast. I knew that I had private money investors that were already doing flips with me that I just had to have a conversation with about possibly doing this deal with, right? So I had those conversations sort of preemptively saying like, hey, I'm looking at a possible purchase of a rental that I could renovate and keep. Would you be at all interested? Started sending out those text messages. Again, I'm going kind of through some things pretty fast, not because I want to confuse anybody, but just because there's a lot to the story. But if you want to ask questions, obviously you could do that. And I might open up later, depending on how fast I can get through the story to actually take those questions, right? But I want to tell you kind of what happened in a relatively fast way so you can have the space for those questions. Okay. So just hang tight with me. I promise we're gonna cover everything. But anyway, so I knew that I heard he started planting some seeds with some private money folks. I knew that I had the main lender, the first position, like purchase and construction money lender available to basically fund up to 90%, right? So if you don't know where to go for that, quick reminder that realdirectlending.com has access to capital that's basically anywhere between 80 to 90% of the total cost of a project if there's renovation involved. So go to realdirectlending.com. And realdirectlending.com will have a network of funds that we work with, ones that I know personally, the actual owners of the funds, the people that actually make the decisions that we'll connect you to. And then we just facilitate, there's no cost to you. We get paid on the lending side, as a commercial loan originator, basically. And we work with the fund that does the actual lending. So with that being said, I went to one particular group that I'd done some business with already, based out of the West Coast at that time, and they were happy with the deal. The numbers look great. We can close in a few days. I ordered title, right? We got a contract signed. We got title search started. I ordered title with Investors First Title. So if, again, you don't know, investorsfirsttitle.com. My business partner, Ken, is currently traveling, I think, although he's probably coming back, I think next week or whichever, but he's out of the country at the moment, but he's helping, he's got some folks on staff helping take calls and things. So if you guys have any questions, go to investorsfirsttitle.com and you can learn more about that. But I went to Ken, I said, let's get title started immediately. And then I think we had to work with another title company too, because there was title already started. So there was some coordination there, but it was really up to the title companies to do all that work as far as figuring out like, how are they going to get this deal closed? I wasn't involved in all that. I said, listen, I need to get clear title. I need to know what this deal is on paper, like as far as what's on record, and we're going to close this. It's a auction property. So there's what's called a chancery abstract typically is what's needed because it's foreclosure related type of thing. So there had to be that part of it taken care of. And then essentially, anyway, that's a detail. Again, these are not that important, I guess, but we got to the point where we got title, we got the binder, and then essentially had my lender. And I had those conversations, those private money conversations with people that wanted to jump into the deal to work with me on this, particularly, as a rental property to renovate it and then ultimately refinance out. And the plan was to renovate it, refinance out, and pay off the loan to the private money lender. And that's where we kind of landed, but I'll get to that too. Like sometimes because of the appraisal that we got, we weren't able to do that in full, but we had another solution. So we'll get to that when I get there, like I said. So we bought the property. We closed with using OPM, 100% of OPM. We signed some paperwork, obviously, for the loan documents. Bought the property, did about a $70,000 renovation. We ended up doing the roof. We did interior remodel on the one unit completely. It was vacant when we got it. And essentially the left-hand unit, I think we did some minor updates. And then we ended up having to get the whole front porch completely replaced. So the whole front porch, the town came when they went to go get the CO, the certificate of occupancy. The town said, this isn't going to work. It's too, old and it's falling apart. It's not safe, even though it was relatively safe in our opinion. It just wasn't safe enough for the town to feel comfortable. So I ended up, we had to replace the whole entire front porch for like almost 10 grand, which is unfortunate, but we did that. And then, and that took care of that. So we were done. And then we moved on to the next thing. So then our focus is really about getting, tenants into place. So now we move away from renovation. So we finished the renovation. And now we're looking to rent this place out. So what did we do? We went on, at that time, I think we might've been even using Craigslist or Zillow. We used Zillow, I think, Zillow for rent, and had someone in the office just post a listing on Zillow for rent, put it out to the whole world pretty much to know that this property is available for rent. We pushed the market. So I think we marketed at $1,650 per side. The average was probably about $1,400, but we knew there were some people renting out for like $1,600, $1,500, $1,600 in that range per unit, 2-bedroom units, 2 bed, 1 bath with a walk up. And so By the way, I have pictures and stuff like that. If anyone wants to see that, we could have a conversation later, but not right now. I don't have a presentation for today. But as far as this is just a conversation, kind of an example to share with you guys and then take your questions on this. So anyways, we finished the renovation and we started marketing for tenants, and then we didn't hire like a property management company or like that. So a lot of people think you have to, you don't have to. You just have to know how to get people to see the apartments that are available for rent. And so that's what we did. We use Zillow, which is free. There are some people messaging, I guess, in one of the, I'm just looking at my Facebook. If anyone at the office can see that, I'm not sure if there's another, just a quick side note that maybe they hear me talking, but they're looking for some information, I guess, inside the event on Facebook. Just a heads up on that, team. Joe, can you hear me right now? Are you able to help follow through on that?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't see what you're talking about though. I do see the comments that we put down, but
Yeah,
I'll,
if anybody's in the actual event, as in like it says happening now, and it might say that you should join by going to that event itself. It's not there. I don't know if you can even hear me right now, but it's actually inside the main discussion group of the group. Like it's in the main discussion wall, I guess you'd call it on
okay,
Facebook.
very good. Yep. All
So
right.
if maybe you could check, there's a chat, I think, that's set up or somehow got set up on the actual event itself. If somebody could go in there from our team and just let people know that actually the event's happening now inside the main group and not inside the event, that'd be perfect.
Got it.
Cool. Thank you. So everyone, yeah, see if someone just sent a message to me saying I'm not able to see the live is another link we should use. So guys, if we could, Joe's working on that. I guess just get the link or get people from the event on Facebook over to the live, please. That'd be great. Thank you. All right, back to the story, right? So here we are. We own the property. We just finished the renovations. We just put on the market to rent through Zillow, which is a free service. You don't have to pay money. At least at that time, we didn't. I don't think it still doesn't cost anything, as far as I know, to get advertisement, right? Because what Zillow does, they basically get paid by real estate agents. It's just subsidized by the cost of the real estate agent spends money to get it marketed to be one of the buyer's agents that gets a phone call. So that's a whole nother topic for another day, but just know that Zillow is free to us in some ways, but it's not really free. There's a monetization strategy there that's going on behind the scenes that is not as obvious. But beside the point, we put it up there. It's syndicated, which means it pushes it out to all the different sites like, realtor.com and whatever other sites like they're out there marketing stuff as far as apartments for rent, apartments.com probably, et cetera. And, we were just flooded with like inquiries. It was just nuts. Like within a couple of days, we probably had 30 or 40 applications and inquiries, not full applications, but just people looking to get an application. It was like, wow. So we knew that the demand was there, and that's what we expected, that there would be a tremendous amount of demand because the property was renovated really nicely. Shout out to Darren who helped facilitate that. Darren is up there in New Jersey, so he might hear this. He helped facilitate that project for us. And so he's somebody that's been in the business for quite a while as well. And really an accolade to his team's quality of work that they got done. He's done multiple projects with us before. So if you want to get in touch with Darren, happy to make that connection for anyone who wants to talk to him in New Jersey and have a conversation about helping him manage a project for you in New Jersey, central New Jersey specifically. But nonetheless, so then we got these inquiries and it's like, well, what do you do now? Like you might say, well, how do I go through the process to screen these people? So I had to get a quick education from some real estate folks that I knew, including Darren, about what like housing laws were to make sure I'm not discriminatory towards anything. Cause now you're getting into like dealing with people that are looking to occupy an apartment. And some of you might be nervous about that. If you are a little more apprehensive, then you go ahead and you leverage a real estate agent to help you do this process. That's why people hire real estate agents to get places rented so they can facilitate everything. We just decided because we're basically a vertically integrated company at that point and still are, like we want to be able to manage it and do self-management, not have to worry about paying additional fees for just getting a tenant in place. So rolled my sleeves up, got a couple team members to do the same, and got the real estate paperwork that we needed to get the lease put together, get the application. Obviously, we used a service at that time, it was called Cozy, cozy.co, I think it was, and that helped facilitate the application. So again, that system, there's probably a replacement since then with apartments.com, I think has something, or they bought that software. There's different softwares out there, different sites you could use to screen, to collect information from tenants, and protect that information so that you're not sharing the personally identifiable information across the whole internet, things like that in a way that's not going to, you don't want to backfire, right? You want to make sure it's protected. So you have to think about that too, but that's a detail. Again, if you don't know how to do that, contact the real estate agent that's actually doing leasing and they'll answer that for you. We got the tenants, we had all these applications come through and now it's like, all right, well, how do we evaluate? So we went through that process to screen and evaluate the tenants. obviously we had our criteria. I don't have it all right in front of me now, so I'm not here. I'm not going to dictate to you like what the criteria needs to be, but usually there's a certain credit score, there's a certain amount of income ratio to the debt and things. And you have to get authorization to pull credit. You have to get authorization to pull a background check potentially. So we had all that through the system. We did what we had to do and did it all compliantly. And we picked a couple of tenants basically, and we got them into the, the lease agreement. Oversimplifying this because it's just a detail that doesn't matter for most of you right now. You're not like, at least tell me if I'm wrong, everybody, but if you guys are like having vacant apartment units, like if you're in a place where you just renovated a property and you have vacancy and you can't fill them, I'd be very surprised. So I doubt that's a problem that most of the people listening to this message have right now, although it could be a problem in the future, I suppose. There's an excessive amount of demand for renovated property, and renovated apartments is just the same thing. It's just that they're leasing it and not buying it. So it's not about like the demand side, really. It's more about the supply side. So really the sourcing strategy, again, just to remind you guys, relationship with a wholesaler who was very active. This guy knew how to work through HubSpot and get bank-owned properties and foreclosures. Again, just think of that. That's a very important indicator. Talk about last week, check last week's replay, right? Listen to that conversation with Lewis. Think about how that applies to the sourcing strategy here. And think about if you're a wholesaler that has those kind of opportunities or can get those kind of opportunities, well, then you have an audience of people here that want to buy those deals. Like this gentleman sold me the deal. Ultimately the funding strategy, right? So the buying part requires capital. Well, we had to leverage other people's money. So we leveraged a first position lender that works as a fund, basically lending out capital. And we leveraged the majority the deal was leveraged to use their capital. The majority was their capital. The majority part of that was a first position loan. It was about 90% loan to cost. It was discounted. Those things don't need to make a lot of sense for you right now. But the fact is, like, I had to have 10, 15% down basically. And I had to get that money from somewhere. So it could be my own money, or I could do what's called raise that money. So raising money basically means, like I see Joe on my screen, Joe says, hey, I want to jump into a deal and I want to put this much money into a deal that's related to a rental property. We have a conversation. Joe and I talk some more. It's like, hey, well, I have a deal that might make sense for you, Joe. Let's see if we could joint venture or if we could do a private money deal. And Joe says, yeah, I'm interested, or no, I'm not interested, or yeah, I might be into this way, that way. So we talk and we negotiate, but we do that with people that we have KLT, know, like, and trust, people that are knowing who we are, that like us for who we are and trust us. And we want to honor that. And we need to do our best to communicate and keep that integrity. And sometimes, especially in renovation projects, it's not always easy because sometimes things are out of your hands. Sometimes the contractors take too long. Sometimes the townships are difficult to work with. Sometimes properties don't sell for as much or sell as fast. With rental properties, the nice thing is that a lot of that stuff doesn't happen as often because the renovations are usually a lot smaller. Usually they're not always smaller, unless you're like, if you're building a 2-family or building a 10-unit building, that's one thing. But if you're like renovating it, you're just renovating the apartments and the systems. Typically we did a new roof. Like I said, we did some updates to the systems and also the units themselves. But essentially that deal, we were probably into it for about 250, 260 in that range. And these numbers are not precise, so don't quote me on this. Essentially from there, we went through the refinance. Once we stabilized it with tenants, we ended up getting $1,650 for both sides, I believe. So it was like $3,300 a month, gross rent coming in. The actual expenses I don't have remembered, but like as far as the numbers, but it was probably 8 to 10K for taxes, kind of expensive on taxes in New Jersey. The insurance, utilities, all that stuff. It was still like a pretty sizable amount of net income. At the end of the day, when we went to go refinance it, we had about $600 or $700 of cash flow per month at the rates of what we had then at that time, which at that time, actually, it was high sixes, low sevens. This is the period of time when commercial real estate loans for the 30-year DSCR was still operating at that level. And obviously it depends on credit and things like that. It depends on the leverage, but for the highest leverage and for pretty good credit at that time, it was like high sixes, low sevens as far as the rate. Again, don't think about the numbers of the dollars and cents so much. Think about the concepts, especially if you're newer. The dollars and cents part matters. I'm sure I'm gonna have somebody in this group say something like, oh man, like you paid that much or you paid this little or whatever, like different relative things. Like the relative part of it is not relevant. If that makes any sense. It's not relative to relevance. It's not the same, because what's relevant is the fact that you all need to find more deals that are distressed, and you need to find more opportunities to leverage that make sense to leverage to go buy more property to create more wealth and create more cash flow. That's the most relevant for everybody who's listening to this, that calls himself or wants to be a real estate investor. If you guys are with me, just put the word invest into a comment, or put the letter I, even if you're with me, like you're saying, I'm that person. I want to invest. I want to do this. I'm committed to doing this as an investor. Just put the letter I inside of the Facebook chat, the Facebook comment. I want to kind of make sure I know who's here to do what we're trying to do and who's just kind of here, like kind of spinning wheels and kind of going in circles. With all due respect, right? Like you could listen, but if you're not here to actually kind of participate, we just want to know who we should talk to. That's all. Um, so at the end of the day, we went through, we had that place stabilized, and I was saying it was $3,300 a month coming in, and got the loan. So what happened was I went back to the same lender, right? Which you could do this in your deals. The lender that provided the first position loan on the purchase and renovation also became the lender to do what was called a rate and term refinance. So basically paying off that loan that I got and just getting a better term, a better rate, a better term of that loan, which essentially was whatever percentage it was, 6 or 7%, and then 30-year amortization on a 30-year term. And so the closing took about probably 45 days or so because it had to get, it's not full doc. If you don't know what full doc is, just to kind of clarify, that'd be like where you're showing every detail about all your financial background, your DTI, your W-2, your income verification, bank statements, all that kind of stuff. That's a full doc, like going to the bank. This was a low doc, but it was still enough docs to where I had to show certain things and pull credit and things like that. So just if you're not sure what I'm talking about, again, go to realdirectlending.com and set up an appointment to learn more information about how that all works. We can help kind of explain those details for you. Realdirectlending.com has that information through our team. But in this case, I went to go do a rate and term refinance. And so I go to lender, hey, here's my leases. I got these leases signed for $1,650 aside. The tenants are in for a year. They gave me a security deposit. It's stabilized. Like, I want to go refinance this. Okay, great. I said, I think the value is probably in the mid 300s, like 350. They say, awesome, let's do this. So we went, I submitted all the paperwork, go to do the refinance. And then we get to the appraisal, right? The appraisal comes back, and unfortunately, the appraisal came back lower than we thought. So this happens, right? The appraisal came back at 320. Well, why did that happen? Well, we looked at the details, and there wasn't enough transactional history on any other two families because there's not a lot of supply in this neighborhood that was renovated. And so the appraiser had very little to go off of. And so this happens on deals. This happens. There's another story on appraisals that I could share some other time about a property that had a particular comp expire. When we were flipping this property, when we bought the property, the comp was still active, was still like usable. This other property, right? This other property in Plainfield, New Jersey. But the problem was that by the time we went to go sell the property, which is only about 7 months later, but because it was a little bit older of a comp, like when we bought the property, that property's value wasn't able to be used for the next buyer in that case. And like in this case of this two family, if you're following the two family rental, it wasn't because the comp expired, but it was because there wasn't a comp to even measure against. There wasn't another comparable. All right, let's just pause for a second. Those of you that don't have a lot of experience or might feel a little bit lost right now. Okay, I'm just gonna be real. And that's okay. That's just an indicator that's a lot of stuff for you to learn. And that's okay too, because we have education here, but we also have stuff we could do in private with you. So if you don't know like what I'm talking about, then either send me how about you send me the private message with BRRR, BRRR, in a private message, not a comment, because the comments, we already saw comments. But if you want more support specifically on the BRRR process, then just send me one single message, a keyword that says BRRR, or, and you put whatever else you want after that. Tell me about your experience. Tell me about why you want help, what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll follow up. I'll make sure I get to every single person that sends me a message today, tomorrow, by the latest Monday. So know that, because we're here to support and serve. We're not here just to like talk about stories and hope that you figure it out yourself. We're not that kind of group here. All right. We have opportunities to work with us in different ways that can serve and support and solve those problems that you have as far as not knowing what to do. Okay. Joe, can you do me a quick temperature check? Is everything going okay with the group? Is everything looking good? So I want to make sure we're on track.
Everything's looking great in the Facebook group. We have Becky and Blanca and Lana and Chris and a whole bunch of people on. Almost 30 people are on right now.
Okay. Excellent. Is someone from our office able to drop the everyone tag? I know nobody likes that, but can we make sure we get as many folks on the live now?
Yes.
Because now we're going to get to some of the fun stuff as far as the refi and kind of some of the stories that might be less obvious. If we could drop one of those
Copy that.
into the comments, that'd be perfect. All right, excellent. And guys and gals, if you guys have somebody who's not in the group that you think can benefit from this content, please do us the favor and share the information. Let us know you're sharing it. If you think it's somebody that we should know, send me a message, or just, if you invite them like manually, they'll actually we'll know that you brought them here based on who actually brought the member into the group. So we can always follow up and say thank you, or work out a deal together. However we do that, if it's a transaction we can make money with somehow together. So just do us that favor, because we want to get the word out that people can get benefit from this group. We do a lot of content. We're very strategic as far as the value we're trying to bring. And we know that there's a need for people to learn about this stuff with the BRRR process, because again, the BRRR process is kind of like when you look at like residential and even commercial real estate, it's one of the few strategies that shows how you create wealth, like how you can create wealth, how you can leverage other people's capital without having to be limited by your own. You still can create wealth by leveraging other people's capital, as far as having the ability to borrow capital and invest capital together with individuals that you want to work with, at the same time producing cash flow of income producing real estate. So like you could have income producing real estate and also have equity. And then eventually you could look to refinance out that equity, of which then you pull out into what's called a cash out refinance, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. In this particular deal, though, the one in central New Jersey that we did a few years back, we didn't do a cash out refinance because frankly, there wasn't enough cash out to pull out. Unfortunately, the numbers didn't work out that way. So we ended up doing a rate and term refinance. And it's because the appraisal came in low. Again, if you missed the part about the appraisal, let me just say this one more time. When you look at a residential appraisal, a 1 to 4 family residential appraisal, that appraisal, right, is going to have the sales comparison approach is going to be used. It's going to be used, meaning like a sales comparison appraisal. And I'm not an appraiser, but I'm telling you guys, so you know this. If you talk to any appraiser, they should tell you the same thing. If we have any appraisers in the group, feel free to comment on this. 1 to 4 family residential building, single family home or small apartment building, is going to be appraised based upon sales comparison as opposed to what's called income approach. So okay, sales comparison, what does that mean? It means I'm looking for comparable properties that have similar condition, that have sold recently in a similar neighborhood or the same town, basically, right nearby. That's comparison approach. Like that's using that's using sales comparison approach, not income. Sales comparison approach for 1 to 4 family, not income. When we go to 5 and up, 5 units residential, or let's say 3 units residential, 1 unit mixed use actually could be considered a commercial. If it has on the floor a retail storefront with three residential apartments above it, that could be considered, so depends who you talk to, a commercial deal because it has mixed use, right? So it's now commercial. There's actually a business component, but normally it's 5 plus, right? 5 plus is the easy way to think of it. So if I have, let's say, a 6 unit building, or if I have, let's say, 4 residential and 2 storefronts, that's easier to kind of think about. And so what's different about that is this, and we talk about this inside the Growth Collective almost every week, almost every day sometimes with certain clients, because this is where it gets interesting. When you go 5 plus, right, 5 plus units means that the income approach is utilized. I can't make that clear enough. And why is that important for you? It's because I need to understand how my property is going to be evaluated. Once I do all this work to it, I want to refinance it. Okay. When I go to refinance on a BRRR, a buy, renovate, rent, refi, I want to be able to have enough money to pay off private money or my own capital I put in to be able to get made whole and not own that property with any money tied up. Meaning I don't want to have any money left in that deal. I want to be able to pull all of it back out and recycle and use it for the next one and the next one after that, and keep recycling the same monies. But it's not possible unless we have a certain amount of equity. So here's the thing. With commercial real estate, 5 plus, again, income approach, appraisal based property. The way that we get to the value is based upon the income of the property, not based upon the actual sales comparison approach, or at least not weighted on that. Okay, so I'm oversimplifying it, but the fact is what's called cap rate is utilized. Cap rate is really simply capitalization rate. So if you guys want to learn this stuff, again, I'll give you some of the terms and then we can follow up separately. If you want to know what cap rate is, just send me a message that says cap rate, right? If you want to know more about that, it might indicate that you're interested in multifamily, larger deals. You put it in the comments. We could always talk about that. Cap rate, though, is simply this: NOI, net operating income, divided by the total cost of getting into that, my cost basis, my purchase, my renovation. And usually we want to factor in things like, closing costs, maybe some carry costs, but not so much financing costs, because financing, I see someone asked about DSCR. We'll get to that in a second. What's a DSCR loan? Very good question. But financing costs are not going to be factored in when we're calculating cap rate. But you might want to consider factoring in things like vacancy, for example. What's vacancy? Well, physical vacancy means someone's literally not living in that unit. And then financial vacancy is when someone's literally not paying to live in that unit, whether they live there or not. You could have tenants not paying. You could have no tenants and therefore not paying. So we want to factor in some of these things. Again, each deal is a little bit different. So I can't give you a general, like always this way, never that way kind of thing. But lenders typically will factor in vacancy when they underwrite the deal. What does that mean? It means when they look to see, should we make a loan on this deal and how much should we make a loan of? That's going to be something where they're factoring in things like vacancy because they want to make sure you have some mitigation of risk in terms of what if this place has no income? how are we going to pay for the fact that there's expenses, including the debt service? The debt service is every month the payment, the mortgage payment. Debt service. That's related to what's called, someone asked in the chat or in the comments, DSCR. The DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. Debt service coverage ratio. Okay. Debt service coverage ratio. Let's just touch upon that for a second. And then we're going to complete the refi on that property I told you about, and then talk about what happened next and kind of how things went on from there. The DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, says my payment, my principal and interest payment that I'm paying to the lender every month, or the servicing company that collects the money for the lender, has to be compared to, right, the net operating income. So how do I do that? Well, I need to make sure that I have enough net operating income coming in with vacancy, if it's a lender that's looking at this, with vacancy involved. So in other words, net operating income minus my vacancy factor of, let's say, 10%, which is pretty common on property that's long-term tenanted, like as in like rentals that are long-term tenants in there, right? Net operating income minus vacancy, and then divide that number by the actual principal and interest payment. So again, I might be losing some of you guys. It's okay. It's math. You don't have to do this yourself. There's a lot of tools. If you go to runyournumbers.com, someone could drop that as a link into the actual comments. And also, I think our Growth Collective members probably have that already. By the way, we're inside of Zoom. We have a handful of Growth Collective members here. So shout out to Jenny and Glenn, and also Wendy and Joe's here, and a few other people I might not be able to see right now. Let me see. We got Sherry on with us as well. So appreciate you guys being here. I know that not everyone can be there at this time right now live, but I appreciate those of you that are able to make the time. And also shout out to our Facebook friends inside the Real Estate Investing Mastermind group. It's Run Your Numbers with an S at the end. I see the team member, Chris, just put that in there. If you could just update that to with an S at the end, please, that'd be great. So runyournumbers.com, that's going to shift you over to a calculator tool that will allow you to then figure out all these things on the BRRR. There's literally a template that says the BRRR template, BRRR template, which this tool, which is not something that we develop. We just refer our friends and people that we do business with over to that tool. And you guys here that are just like looking to learn it, because it's a very powerful tool. We've used it in our business over the past almost 7 years, probably. We got using it for, hasn't been since the beginning. It only came out like probably 6 or 7 years ago, I would say, is probably when I first learned about it. With that being said though, okay, one thing we didn't talk about today, which I'm not going to get into too much detail, but we have a training on this. So if you guys want help with this, let me know again about the renovation. So we have a training just on the renovation management. It might be up there in the guides. If you watch this inside the Real Estate Investing Mastermind group, it may not be there. If you can't find the training for the renovation management, then send me or put a comment, send me a DM or put a comment renovation. We'll make sure we get you that link to the renovation management training. If you're catching this for the first time, we did talk about that a couple of weeks ago, I think, where we mentioned about that training. So if you want to learn how to properly manage renovations, how to set up a scope of work, set up a budget, set up a timeline, deal with contractors, deal with all the headaches. It's a lot of headaches. Just put in the word renovation. We'll know to follow up with you to have that conversation as well. I'll get you that link. But we're skipping to the refinance right now. So we're in the last R, okay? We're talking about DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, debt service coverage ratio. Remember that, debt service coverage ratio. Okay. What is debt service coverage ratio? Net operating income minus vacancy. With lenders, we'll do this. Divided by, right? Divide that by your principal and interest payment. So let's say I have a payment of about $1,000 a month for this particular property. And let's say that I'm getting, just to keep it math simple, $1,250. $1,250, $1,250 is basically 1.25 DSCR on $1,000 payment. So it means that I have a debt service coverage ratio of 1.25. Well, what's special about 1.25 is that historically, a lot of lenders on the commercial lending side, of which I worked inside of a fund for over a year and now still work with that fund and work with other groups that do this kind of stuff. Those guys will look at, basically, the investors that work with those guys will look at DSCR on a cash out refinance basis. They're looking for a DSCR typically, historically, of 1.25 or better, meaning like you have to make at least 25% more net income on the property than the debt service of what it's costing you to actually take care of that loan. What does all that mean, really? Well, it's a lot. We can get into those details again, but what it basically means that if you're not cash flowing, meaning like there's extra cash after you pay your debt service each month, you pay your mortgage payment. If you're not cash flowing, they're probably not going to lend you that much money to do that deal. So that's something you got to know. Okay. When you do what's called a rate and term refinance, a rate and term refinance is different than a cash out refinance. Let's talk about that. Cash out refinance, rate and term refinance. Rate and term refinance says, like I did on this particular 2-family, I'm paying off the existing loan and I'm not going to need new money as in cash out. I'm only just looking to pay off that first loan and not have to worry about getting any extra cash out. That was because the value came in at 320. And there's different limits as far as what you could refinance at. So typically it's like 70 to 80% of that new value is what you could refinance at, depending upon if it's a rate and term refinance or a cash out refinance. Cash out refinances typically, and this is all stuff you can get again, realdirectlending.com. Realdirectlending.com has a lot of information. You can set up an appointment with myself or someone at the office to talk more specifically how this stuff works. And you could also just DM me, like I said before, if you're interested in learning more, depending on what you heard me say. The fact is, though, the DSCR and the refinance are related in the sense that the other letters, another language here, basically, guys and gals, is LTV, loan to value. I'll say it again, LTV, loan to value. Loan to value says I can take a loan on the refinance or on the purchase for that matter. I could take a loan out that's a certain maximum of the value of that property, either today's value, otherwise called AIV, as in not to be confused with any of the letters that sound like that, AIV, right? It says as is value, right? As is value is AIV. ARV is after repaired value, right? Or as repaired value. So ARV is what I can refinance off of because at this point I should be at that ARV as in my finished value of the property being worked on. Okay. I hope you guys are getting this. Continue to ask the questions. We're going to come back around in about 5 minutes, hopefully, to answer those questions. I promise. So I'm looking at on the refinance, I'm looking at either doing a cash out or a rate and term refinance on that new value, that ARV. Well, the ARV, everybody, on this particular property was appraised at $320,000. And I don't remember exactly if it was 70, 75, whatever it was not enough for me to make any cash out come out, essentially. It was just enough to get the rate and term, and that was it. So what that left me was a scenario where I had capital of my own and someone else's left in the property. I'm going to get there in a second. I was able to negotiate, and that individual is still somebody who I know to this day has been more than reasonable on many different things, and someone I respect highly that I'm not going to call out specifically, but I can make a connection. If you want to work with great people that understand real estate, that also do business actively and are looking to participate with people that have deals that make sense, let's have a conversation. This guy is one of those people, and I can connect the dots for you if anyone wants to know, more people like that. That's another thing we do inside the Growth Collective. We make connections for joint ventures and things of that nature to help people do deals together. We're big on collaboration. We're not just here to do it all ourselves. Fact of the matter is, though, that property didn't appraise for enough. So what happened was, as I was cash flowing, I made a decision to start continue to pay that interest to that particular private lender. And I kept paying it until I basically got to a point where I said, listen, it's like, let's figure out a game plan to get the principal out. Well, I could wait for a little while to refinance again. Or what I said was, let me just see. At that time, the market was going up. This is about a year and a half after I owned it. By the way, I bought the property on my mother's birthday. It was January 31st. Okay. And I might get a little bit choked up because it was the first property that I bought, the first rental property I bought on my mother's birthday. And she had already passed away for almost 2 years at that point. And it was special to me. And I intended on keeping that property for a long time. I was able to get the closing at time somehow with the lender and everything like that. It was like right in January. I said, listen, I need to close on this date, no matter whatever it takes. I'm getting this done because I want to have this be special. So I did that. But it doesn't always happen that way. We can't always celebrate deals closing on days that are special, our birthday or our family's birthday, or in this case, my mother who passed away's birthday a couple of years past. She passed away before that, but she was actually very involved. And she's also the reason why I got this deal. And it's not because she gave birth to me either. My mother, God rest her soul, my dad might be listening to this. I'm just gonna check myself real quick because it's getting kind of tough to say this, but she was sitting in a wheelchair, everybody, not because I wanted her to, but because she felt obligated to help me in her later years of her life do things. She was making phone calls at her kitchen table in Central New Jersey in a wheelchair because she wanted to stay actively involved in doing something every day. She contacted people. Get this, if you're trying to do your first deal, she went back to basics. She just picked up the phone. And my mother called people on Craigslist and Zillow and had conversations with real estate agents and wholesalers. And she met this guy, Corey. And she talked to Corey on the phone. She didn't meet him in person. She just spoke to him on the phone. Hey, my son, Doug, is a real estate investor in the area, and he'd love to look at deals you have. Do you have anything we can take a look at now? What do you know Corey did? Yes, Mrs. Beck, I'd love to send you some stuff. I'm going to send you some deals. What should I send them to? She said, hey, here's Doug's email address. Let him know that I got contact. And then she said, hey, honey, I got this guy, Corey. He has got a couple deals. And next thing you know, a couple months later, after looking at some of this stuff, this is one that landed in my lap. So my mother, God rest her soul, was the reason why I got a relationship with Corey. And my dad actually honored my mother with this transaction. I gave my dad a check as a referral just to be doing the right thing and paying it forward to the fact that my mother, before she passed away, set this deal up for me without even realizing she was doing that. And I gave my dad a referral check after the fact when we closed because I felt like that was the right thing to do. And my dad, thank God, is still alive. He joins a lot of our meetings. He might be listening to this after, I'm not sure. But my parents, man, like they were just stellar people. So I appreciate them. And I hope to God that you guys have some people in your life, whether it's your parents, your siblings, your friends, that are keeping you focused on the right things and doing the right thing for each other. But all that to say that it's all kind of the same thing. Relationships, it's really having conversations. So we got this deal, we got to the refi, like I said. And at that time, the market, you know, it was tough to do. It was tough because I wanted to hold on to this property forever. But the fact was, like, for multiple reasons, including the growth of our fix and flip business and also the fact that the market was so good, I said, let's just test the market. So I went to one of the agents working at our brokerage and I said, because we were brokerage up in New Jersey, I said, hey, Alex, let's get this thing listed on the market. What do you think about listing it for me? Helping me out with it, getting this thing sold or see what the thing's worth, at least even just to see, because it's a year and a half later. We already cash flowed a bunch and paid down some principal a little bit, not a lot. And then I also had this opportunity to do a bunch more fix and flips. I said, what if we could? Like, what if we could sell it for like 350? What if we could sell it for 360? What if we could sell it for more than that? Mind you, the property appraised for 320, right? About like 6 months prior to I decided to start selling the property because I had already had owned that property for almost a year till we get the refi process. We had to get the whole place renovated. It was a bigger renovation. The township took forever, certain things. We got the tenants placed. We cashed for a little bit and then we started the refi process. With everything all said and done, we're into this thing for about a year and a half before I realized that this place was worth a lot more than 320. It wasn't worth 520 or something crazy like that. It wasn't like this crazy, like, you know, lottery ticket type of thing. But we put the property on the market for 369. And within the first day, we had multiple people making offers. And this is back in 2019, I guess. And again, don't call me on the dates and the numbers, guys. I'm not looking at like specifically written down. Like this isn't this is just off the top of my head from what I know of telling a story that actually happened. I like to be real. That's why we chose real direct lending. I'm not the guy to sugarcoat stuff. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm going to help you guys whenever I can. If I can't help you, I'll tell you that too. And I'm trying to help you by actually sharing a story of a real deal that we did not too long ago. And it paints a picture of the BRRR that you could, the BRRR process. So you guys can learn that. Okay. So Alex says, hey, we got a couple offers. We got this offer at 350 with an FHA buyer. We got to offer at like 330 for a cash purchase. And we got to offer for whatever it was for some other number. So check it out. Now we move into now we're moving into sale mode. So this is like, by the way, the BRRR process, we already kind of finished that. So if you're not like totally clear about what I'm saying, like the BRRR is done. The BRRR was buy, renovate, rent, refi. Now we fast forward a little bit later, we say, what if we want to sell this asset or trade this asset up to do something else? Some of you guys are looking to do trading of properties or exchanges and things. So check it out. So if I want to do that, I need to test the market at least to know what this thing is worth. So I put it on the market with Alex. We got feedback. I had the choice of whether I sell this property or keep the property. I don't have to sell it. I thought about selling it and I decided to list it for sale, but that's just a marketing process. Now, if I get offers that are where I need to be, it's ethical to then proceed and sell it. It would be not good to not do that. But at the same time, things could change in the period of time. If it takes days, weeks, or months to try to sell this thing, you have the choice to pull the listing and say, hey, we decided not to sell it. I still said, let's see this through. So what do we get? We got highest and best. We got multiple offers to begin with. We called for highest and best. This is a selling strategy we're moving into. It's not part of the BRRRR process. It's just another side thing. And I'll close at this point, open up for questions. So very long story short, the two offers that didn't know, and that's a whole nother thing you could talk to a real estate agent about, or someone like you could talk to me about it too if you want. Highest and best. I mean, it's auction again, basically. You could use this strategy to get your property to sell for more if you have multiple people interested. It's what pretty much happened for the past number of years with COVID and stuff like that. When real estate started going crazy, you got multiple offers and you call for highest and best and you get property selling for 30, 40, 50, 100 grand, 200 grand over asking. Okay. In this case, we negotiated with the cash buyer. Right? A deal that was more than 375, a little bit more than. It doesn't really matter the exact number, but it was a little bit more than that. And we closed within like 2 weeks. So like, I'm not going to give you all the numbers, but you can kind of do the math. 175 with like 75K worth of work, owning the property, getting cash flow, selling for 375 and a little worth of that. You can see where this is a sweet deal in a relatively short period of time. And that's the power of the BRRRR process, but it's also the power of just being in real estate and being a real estate investor and actually doing things like we talk about doing every single week, which is talking to people that have deals, sourcing deals, analyzing deals, negotiating deals, entering into contract to buy property, getting your lender lined up, getting your private money side lined up, closing the deal, in this case, renovating it, planning to keep it, keeping it for a little bit, cash flowing for a little bit, and ultimately selling it. Now, I sold the property, but hindsight's 2020. This property is probably worth close to $500,000 today. So kick myself, where for over 120 grand probably of equity I could still have, but that's equity. What if the property goes down in value? If the market does change a little bit, which it probably will, and drop a little bit. Fact is, like, it is what it is. Like, it's a stepping stone for many of you, including me at that time, was a stepping stone in the right direction to grow and multiply. So after that, the moral of the story is that we then grew our fix and flip business to where we were buying multiple properties a month. And from that point until now, we've probably done another 30 fix and flip projects and a bunch more wholesale flips and grown multiple companies. And it's just, it's like the rest is history, but it's not done yet. We're still growing. So fact is, like, it was a part of the journey, but it's not the end of the line, if that makes any sense. It's just part of the journey. So you got to think of it like that as well when you're thinking about your plans and exit and how you actually run these projects to completion. Okay. Questions. I see some questions on Facebook. I'm going to also go to the Growth Collective. If you guys have any questions, you feel free to put those into the chat. Let me see if we got anything there. Joe's just putting some stuff. Wendy said, aye. Perfect. Cool. So I see a question from Christina on Facebook. What's the math equation again? Net income divided by, so Joe kind of covered that. Net income divided by cost, not including financing costs. So you're going to take your NOI and then probably include your vacancy factor and then divide that by the cost to buy the property and renovate the property and probably to close on the property as well. Those are fixed expenses that you're going to incur, and they're not financing expenses. Okay. Any other questions on Facebook? Joe, you see anything? My feed is not updating very often, but I want to make sure we're seeing whatever's coming through.
Yeah, it's actually pretty fast. No other questions right this second.
Okay.
Isn't it funny how we get most questions on the replay when people are watching this?
Absolutely, man. I know. Well, that's okay. You guys, if you're on replay, I've seen some people put like the comment replay. So we know that you saw that. So maybe drop a comment when you see this and hear this replay when you see this. And if you're live, tell us live. I think it will tell us that, but you can put the word live if you want, and let us know you're here live. And then Christina says she may have missed this. She wasn't able to get on the beginning. Where's the best place to find leads? A lot of different places, Christina. So that's a really loaded question, but I'm happy to have that conversation now a little bit, and we could get into some other things. There's a website that you guys could check out that's more of a database of property owners all across the country. It's called nationwidesellerleads.com. Nationwidesellerleads.com. I don't necessarily recommend that for everybody to use that right out the gate. Like that's like the holy grail or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. That particular website will take you to a tool that is used across the industry that has a 7-day trial that you could use to start sourcing information. If you want to go direct to seller, which it may not make sense for you or anyone else that's listening to this right now, because you may not have the time to talk to sellers. You may not have the money to spend to go do mailings and do phone calls and things like that with sellers. So what's the alternative, Doug? If I can't do the seller stuff, what should I consider doing? Well, if you're part of the Growth Collective, you probably are sick of hearing me talk to I'm blue in the face about relationships. But I can't emphasize enough, every single deal that I can remember had some kind of relationship involved, whether it's sourcing a deal, funding the deal, fixing the deal, flipping the deal. Like there's going to be people. So why not build your network? If you don't have a network, man, we're leaving a lot on the table by not building a network up. If we're just looking at transactions, that's a problem. So Christina, it's not necessarily to you, but somebody listening to this right now probably is thinking of just closing that first deal through a transaction. Like, oh, I got to get this thing done like off market with this sleek marketing tool mechanism thing that somebody's coaching and selling on the internet for thousands of dollars to go do this sleek new thing with AI or something or whatever it is. Look, there's stuff out there that works, but it works on scale when you have literally hundreds or thousands of touching bases. Like as in you have somebody every single day hitting the phone, sending out text messages, doing direct mail, thousands of mail pieces to get 1 or 2 contracts. Maybe that's what you want to do, but I'm of the thinking of Lean Six Sigma says that's a lot of waste. Like, I don't want to waste time or money or both in this case. So I like to go where there's already a deal. One of my mentors showed me a long time ago. He's like, go where people already raise their hand. You want to go to some low hanging fruit? Go to FSBOs, go to agents, go to expired listings that already you can get content information. Go to real estate investors that are called wholesalers, right? Go to people that already have contracts, especially if you're going to BRRRR. Like, wait a second, we're going to buy the property to renovate and then rent it out and refinance it. So why would I want to also do the acquisitions process like a real estate wholesaler would want to do that? No. I'm saying I'm just going to focus on being the buyer. So I need to create relationships with people that already have the deal flow and be willing to pay them 5, 10, 15, 100 grand, whatever amount it costs that the deal makes sense though still to get that deal without having to spend all the time and waste the time and money to hope and pray that you're going to find a deal. So I provide nationwide seller leads just as a reference point for you guys to do research and to possibly do some marketing. Yes. But I don't necessarily recommend that everyone just go on that site and start just like going nuts with marketing. You're going to spend hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars like we did in the beginning to maybe not get that much of a result. And that's not worth the risk, if you ask me, for most people listening to this message. Now, not everybody. If you're a seasoned investor and you have a very targeted list and you know how to talk the talk and walk the walk, then man, you got to be thinking about direct to seller stuff if you're ready to do that. But you got to be super laser targeted, because when you pick up that phone and when one of your VAs or someone who's an agent on your team or someone that's working alongside you picks up the phone and talk to a seller, you got to be ready to talk to them and talk and walk the walk. So, because a lot of sellers are already apprehensive. Why are you sending me mail? Why are you calling me so much? Why are you sending me text messages? Why are you bothering me? I don't want to sell. And especially, it really bugs me when people say, go target the absentee high equity list. Absentee high equity list seems to me like, so you're telling me somebody that's a landlord usually, or that has a property that's vacant, but used to be occupied either by that person or their company, or let's say a tenant, you're telling me that they have a lot of equity. So why exactly would they want to sell it to you for like a crazy discount again? Because they don't know better? That sounds like something that wouldn't be ideal for them. That's not really a win-win. I'd rather talk to somebody who's got some financial challenges going on or some pressure in their life that has to sell because they don't have equity or they have little equity or they don't know what to do. And I could solve a problem by moving fast. That's my preference. And that comes back to the auction bank owned type stuff again. All right. We're not talking about like going to take situations where there's already so much equity to try to get some crazy deal that doesn't make a lot of sense for the other side. No, we want to do a win-win, not a lose-win or win-lose. Right. So like, that's my model. I'd rather go win-win and as many wins as possible in the same transaction. So I hope that kind of makes sense. That was a great question from, I think it was Christina. Oh no, it was somebody else. I apologize. I see Christina said, buyer here, Central Florida, Orlando. Would love to partner. Well, actually, we have a client in our, I'm not going to say who it is because I don't have her permission. And we also have a team member who's in that area that is actively sourcing deals. So both a team member and a client working kind of alongside and doing different things to get deals there. So if you're interested in Christina in that, just hit me up with a DM and we'll get you connected. Or you could also send an email to wholesale at jdlventures.com. All right. Megan says, since we're on the topic, I find that the leads I'm getting are outdated. They're no longer in foreclosure. Property has already gone to the bank. Would you recommend going straight to the auditor's office for UTD leads? Updated leads, I think she's saying. Not necessarily. I mean, that sounds a little bit like you're trying to chase the deal a little bit. Nothing, no disrespect, Megan. It's not like you're doing the wrong thing, but I would say, check your data sources and make sure that, they're as updated as they can be. I know a lot of these data aggregators, like the system that I mentioned, the nationwide seller lead system or some other commercial real estate systems like that, they're going to have like old data. So the thing is, there's not a perfect solution, unfortunately, but I would say if you go on the websites like Hubzu, auction.com, those kind of platforms, that data, like if you see a property listed that's going to auction, you might say it's too late, but you can still use that information if you're creative to go source out how do you get that deal before it goes to final auction. You could utilize that information the same way. Know that that property is about to go to foreclosure or whatever, and you have to then get in touch with the owner kind of thing. So that's a way you could utilize the information publicly available to go source the deal off market if you wanted to do that. Or you could just go attend the auction and try to win the auction, and then you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. You win the bid and you move on. So that's another idea for you. Okay. Listen, we're pretty much out of time. I don't mean to leave you guys on the edge of your seat or anything like that, but just a heads up, we do have a couple more spots in our 90-day accelerator. Just a heads up on that. If you don't know what that is, you can hit me up. Just say 90-day, just the number 90, and then the word day after that. If we're already in touch with you and you haven't yet made a decision, that's okay. We understand, but we're having some really cool success in the program, in the Growth Collective. So check it out and let us know. If you just like to attend these meetings, that's awesome too. No sweat. You're welcome to come here every week, Friday at 1 p.m. currently is a schedule. We're going to continue to pour value. This today was about the BRRR process and also about the flip at the end. How, not every deal is exactly what you need it to be forever and stay always the same. It's going to be morphing and changing depending upon what's going on in your life. So that's exactly what kind of happened here. But we've done this multiple times and we're continuing to do this. Now we're looking to do this on larger deals. So if you have any interest on collaborating, send me a text or a Facebook message, the letter JV. If you want to learn how to participate with us in different ways, you can also go to partner.jdlventures.com. Maybe partner with no S, partner.jdlventures.com. That's a link you guys can check out when you have some time. These are just links about who we are because we want you to know what we do, not because we're trying to sell you anything. They're just basically telling you what you already have access to with the people, including myself and my staff that's here to help serve and support you guys. So it's actually partner.jdlventures.com. partner.jd. That was a website that will take you to a page where you kind of hear and see, and you can schedule a time with myself or Joe or someone else at our office to actually talk about the opportunities to collaborate together. If you're not on our email list, make sure you ask us about that, because we do put out information about different things, and we're going to be putting on a newsletter pretty soon to tell you more about what we're doing as a company and across the board. My team's trying to help out here, but it's just not. Partner is PARTNER. And now I'm questioning I got to type it on. Partner. Yeah. There's an extra E in there. So you guys are just typing too fast. It's partner.jdlventures.com. Yeah, there we go. We got the right one. Shroud pulled through. Thank you guys. Excellent. So check out the comments. If you missed that website, and you should be able to get there, no issue. Let me know if that doesn't work. You can always shoot me a DM. I just checked it. It looks like it is working right. So I will talk to you guys next week. Until then, have an awesome weekend. God bless you all, and go make some BRRRRs happen, and let me know when you have some questions. Talk to you soon.